ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Khuselwa coming to you with another episode of Couch Creators. Today's episode, I'm super excited because we're having a special edition called the Heritage Day Couch Creators episode. I'm so excited because we have beautiful ladies and genders behind me, as you can see, that we're going to be talking about what is heritage all about, what is our heritage all about, as South Africans. We're going to be talking about their individual background, their individual opinions about what heritage is all about, and we're going to be speaking about what is to be free, what is to be free. We talk about inequality as well, we talk about cultural diversity, we're going to talk about everything that's going to do with heritage. So, are you ready for this? Without further ado, let's get the show started and have fun with this for the special episode. Let's get it. I'm your boy, Crazy Kai. Let's go.
Hi everybody, my name is Khuselwa Kafu, and I am a graduate from UWC, and I am an entrepreneur. I produce African fashion. That's all I'm about. Basically, that's it. That's me. Yeah.
My name is John Daniel Josephs. I'm a master's student at the University of the Western Cape. And my interest lies in being contextual and taking in consideration my position as a South African, but first as an African in this country. So that's me.
I am Nadia Black, born in Cape Town, half Cameroon, half South African, and I'm a DJ, I'm an MC, I'm a host, I'm an entertainer, I'm a creative. And yeah, that's just what's up.
Hi everyone, my name is Sianda Kubokana, and it's my second time on this show. I'm always grateful towards the producers and towards the people that make this show possible, for them to always invite me. And I'm a master's student also at the University of the Western Cape. My interests lie in critical heritage studies. I am a historian. I am interested in how we use African oral history to redefine or to rethink what history is in the first place. I am happy to be here, and it's such a very, very iconic month of heritage, month of Heritage Day, sorry. And I'm so happy to be sharing it with very, very colorful and vibrant individuals in the studio.
Jesus Christ, that made me want to reintroduce myself. The way they just said it, I'm just like, wait, should I can I? Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Khuselwa Kafu, and I'm a master's student from UWC. I'm doing a master's in women and gender studies, and my focus specifically is in women and gender studies. And I'm also a fashion designer, but my focus is on African aesthetics. I'm into that. That's me, making African aesthetic shine. That's who I am. For me, being African and doing design, for me, African is an expression. Basically, to put it plainly, it's about me expressing myself. So I would like to express myself as me, and me is an African woman. So that's why my designs are based on who I am, who I'm around, and what I'm about. So that's why my aesthetic is literally African, and my brand is grounded and based around being an African woman and celebrating that.
Okay, but first and foremost, I want to say that people like Khuselwa Kafu are very much. Remember, my line of working is about trying to bring about the African as modern, and not as being sub-modern, if that makes sense. So people like her actually are also amplifying that kind of work to say that being African is not just, it's not something that's outside of what's already there. So there's fashion, there's an idea of fashion in the world, and that the African fashion is not sub that, and also is equally as important and as part as the world. And I think it's going to be interesting, man, with our generation, because we are not just wearing this as an African fashion or clothing, but we are also very prideful, and we are embodying it within other aspects of our personalities, which have also been influenced by Western culture. So.
My cultural background, I would say, according to the government,
the government
critique of my the group that I come from would be colored. But I think colored is a colonial term that was created to create more marginalization and separateness from African and Africanness. So if I would go back to one of the most famous, or not famous, authors of his time, psychiatrist Frantz Fanon, he interrogates the Africanness. He interrogates what it is to live in a colonial state, what it is to live in a post-colonial African country. And I am trying to interrogate my experience through my work, a person being a so-called colored, but the so-called colored is also an identification of heritage, of a colonial segregation, and therefore we must talk about these things, what it is to be colored, what it is to be a colored and African. What comes first? Are you first the African and then the colored, or are you first the colored and then you become African? So those things are very intertwined by our identity as South Africans, because when we sing the national anthem, we sing it as one, but when we walk away from the anthem afterwards, we identify as Xhosa, Zulu, colored, Cape Malay. And how do we see ourselves now in 2022 Heritage Day, and how do we take it from there onwards? That is how my view.
Well, I am South African, I am black, I believe we are all one race, but then it becomes different when I also share a part of being a West African, which is I am African, but when I come to my African people, I'm different, or we are regarded as different people. So I feel like he's saying, it's you are colored, you're African. It's either I'm a foreigner or I'm an African, but I'm an African foreigner, So I feel like we still have, as togetherness, we still have a long way to go to learn to accept each other and realize that we are all Africans, whether I'm black, whether I'm white, whether I'm from Cameroon, whether I'm from South Africa. I'm a foreigner. If I want to speak pidgin, anything I do, I would follow. I'm an African. But this is going to be subtitles for those that don't understand. So, like I said, I understand where he's coming from, but I would like to say it's easier for him because he is a South African colored, and then I would for me, I'm a Cameroon South African, So maybe, I don't know, I might not be in your shoes, it might be easier for you, but it's worse for me as a black person.
Yeah, it is.
It's very difficult, I personally have not really received that separation because of the people that I grew up with, but I've seen it from my dad, who's a foreigner, full Cameroonian, and my friend here, she has accepted me as who I am. She always makes fun of me. It's
all love. It's all love. It's all love.
Jokes and acceptance in the future. Yeah. Like I said, right? I was born here in South Africa. I grew up with South Africans, right? But the things that South Africans do are not that different from what Africans do, West Africans. For example, your lobola, your bride price, when someone graduates, the way you celebrate the person, when someone gets pregnant, the way we are culturally different, but
there are certain aspects of us that are very, very similar. Yeah.
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
For example, I was making a joke the other time yesterday that we play Crazy 8 in South Africa. They also play Crazy 8 in Cameroon, but totally different. A Crazy 8 or
different rules. Same game, different rules.
So we are literally the same. We just edit. When you're cooking, the same way you cook mngosho, I might add something like Maggi. I'll add something different, but it's still the same. It's just I think that's what's amazing about us Africans. We are all similar, but yet quite very unique.
Food is a very important part of any culture. If you go to China or you go to Italy, if you want to know what is the culture like, you taste their food. You taste the pasta in Italy, you drink the coffee that they brew. You go and eat Chinese noodles, which is different than the pasta in Italy. And in South Africa, you have these cultures with different foods. The diversity, when we talk about Ubuntu, what is that now for us today, and what was it when it was initialized in 1994? Because the problems that South Africa faced in 1994 is not the same problems that we are facing now in 2022. So are we accepted? Are we accepting of one another? Or do we ostracize one another as this one of the great scholars in his name is Homi K. Baba, and he talks about nation and narration. He also specifically identifies mimicry, how the oppressed becomes the oppressors. So he defines it as mimicry. You mimic what the oppressors did to you. And so now in South Africa, can we identify that mimicry? Can we identify the new kind of oppression? So diversity, I cannot speak in generalizations or generalize my answer, but I'm aware that South Africa is not there yet where it needs to be in terms of accepting other Africans, even accepting people within South Africa that are born here. So when we talk about Ubuntu, are white people included? Are Indians included? Are Chinese people that are born here included? Are colored and black people also included in this term Ubuntu? So we must interrogate it, we must digest what it is really.
It was brought into the post-apartheid South Africa parliament, and it was initially rejected because how it came about, it was called Shaka's Day because it was believed to be the day that Shaka died in 1828. The Zulu people believe that that's when he died. So then they were paying homage to his death because he was that one person that brought everyone together. All the different clans in the Zululand, he brought everyone together to try and fight the Boers and the English who was trying to invade their land. So it initially it was to pay homage to him. And then obviously the government was like, nah, we ain't trying to celebrate that. And then they rejected it. So the IFP, Inkatha Freedom Party, which majority of it is made up by Zulu people, they were like, no, but you can't not acknowledge this. So then when they rejected it initially and then tried to fight it, and then when it came back to everyone, it was then called Heritage Day, which is now, as we recognize it, a day that all of us, different cultures that form part of the Rainbow Nation, celebrate each other, our existence, and our efforts into making the Rainbow Nation what it is today. So it has come from a very different kind of history, but it is what it is right now, and how we celebrate it right now is different. Like, for example, I don't share the same culture as you. I would dress in a certain way to celebrate it. She would dress in a certain way, and he would dress in a certain way. But I personally do not celebrate it because I'm an African every day. I wake up every day and I'm a Xhosa woman every day.
Yes.
There's not a certain date that's put on it to say on this date, this is where you do it. I wake up every day and I am. And one of my friends was asking me, we went on an event and she was like, did you just come from a wedding? And I was like, no, this is me, because I dress in ethnic wear every single time, because it's not supposed to be pushed on a certain event that's happening at that time. We're supposed to celebrate who we are. We're supposed to be who we are any other day, not just on the 24th of September, but I celebrate it and I respect it. But I celebrate it and respect it because what it stands for is unity. What it's all about is unity. It was someone acknowledging that we are different, we have different views, but we want the same goal. And that's what heritage is about, for me, at least. I don't know about my fellow.
Well, oh yeah, no, but I think I agree with everyone. But for me, and I always say this to everyone, I come from, just like John, from a scholarly environment. And for me, Heritage Day is one of those national projects to make us forget really about the important things that we must discuss. And one of the other things that I've noticed is that the story of the South African nation after '94 has been a story of romanticizing and celebration. So this government has always garnered up events for us to forget really about the deeper burning issues. So for me, Heritage Day, the fact that now it has turned into a Pride Day is because, essentially because of that, we essentialize people to not engage on issues that really, really trouble us, issues that have to do with problems of xenophobia, issues that have to do with racial poverty of kids, like me, who look like me in the townships, of issues around deep embedded issues of GBV, that we have. I feel like for me that the government constantly wants to suffocate us with celebrations and events, and it never wants to take accountability, only because it does that. I mean, anyone else can say no, but every nation needs to celebrate, but a nation like ours needs to first mourn rather than to celebrate, because we've got a very dark history of oppression. And most of that oppression has basically also given birth to the issues that we find amongst different cultures and groups. So let's have an everyday engagement on these issues, and not just one event where we celebrate as if everything is all right, as if we've already gotten this so-called rainbow nation, which was imagined by people like Tutu and Mandela. We have not. In fact, I feel like we've digressed. So that's the danger there. How do you celebrate within a society that needs to constantly engage on issues that trouble us on the ground?
If I can maybe just comment on what Sia said now, that is very important. If you look at the Cape Flats area and the townships, how have we become to a point where we have been neutralized, desensitized by not giving, by not caring for the poorest of the poor. And once a society has reached that point where we just say, oh, what, they live in the shacks, oh, they live in a ghetto township, they can kill each other, they can shoot each other, they can rob one another, we just carry on with our lives. When a nation comes to that point, you have to ask the serious questions as to who's taking the charge to fight for the oppressed, who's taking the charge to care for the oppressed. And given the state that we are in, gender-based violence is a pandemic. It's correct me if I'm wrong, it's the most important thing, because if you if you exterminate the women of South Africa, you kill a generation.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah.
I personally you go and then
just one thing, just a small thing, and I know I'm not supposed to be speaking a lot when it comes to this issue, because I'm a beneficiary of a cultural
patriarchy,
cultural heritage of patriarchy. But honestly, really, a lot of our cultures dictate a certain performance on how a woman should be like or a man should be like. And I think one of the other things we must do, instead of, I have a problem with celebrating Heritage Day. Instead of celebrating Heritage Day, why don't we interrogate the heritage, the problematic patriarchal heritage of how all of these cultures, seem to situate boys in a certain way and girls in a certain way, instead of celebrating it and acting as if things are fine between the genders.
I can absolutely respect that, the whole interrogation of, and I feel like a lot of the people that have a problem with feminism is people that don't understand it. Because they read it on Twitter that feminism is this, feminism is that. But feminism is, if we have a baby, I'm 100%, or rather 50% responsible for it as much as you are. And if we're dating, if we go on a date, I pay 50% and you pay 50%. You know what I mean? If we were to get married and we buy a house, I pay 50% of that house and you pay 50%. But a lot of what feminism is right now is based off of Twitter and what everyone has said about but the essence of it's us being equal socially, politically, financially. And that's it. If we can be together, you and I in a relationship, you are 50% responsible for it. I am 50% for it, responsible. You know what I mean? So in every sense, it's about taking responsibility. 100% taking responsibility. I am here as a human, and as a human, I am equal to you because I'm not less of a human than you are. We are exact same way, but we have different ways that we go to the toilet. But at the end of the day, I'm more superior than you. But I mean, every sense of society has made you guys believe that you are more superior than us, which is not a fact, because all of you guys came from the vagina. But that's not the question today. But
Okay, parental guidance, please.
but it's a fact.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
There's also something as palatable patriarchy, which it's a subconscious promotion within society and how it performs in households. So and you get this explosion of gender-based violence. I read an article where every 40 seconds a woman is raped in South Africa.
It's a fact.
And this is, I'm not even making it up, it can be even worse. That's an article that was written about 10, 11 years ago. So we are at the state now where you do not address the criminals only. You must address the society as a whole and say we have a problem on our hands. How are we going to solve this? And we as South Africans, crime is a big problem. Our cities are one of the top performing cities in crime stats in the world, globally.
Oh, what a question for me. I am a gender-based violence survivor, victim, however you want to put it. And it just so happened that the person that was, offloading is from a West African country. And to them, in their head, there's no such thing as GBV, So as someone who is here and knows that, okay, as a woman, I have rights of not to receive this kind of treatment, and if I do receive this kind of treatment, I can do A, B, C, and D. So I feel like I don't know whether it's also going back to the cultural thing, that to them, if a man says A, it's A. If a man says it's B, it's B. But here, if it's A, I can turn it upside down and make it
That part.
So it's I really wish my brothers can have an open mind of learning that this is such a very difficult topic for me to speak about, but I don't know.
I absolutely appreciate the fact that you've spoken about it, because a lot of the times and you are a strong woman, and for you to come out and say I've experienced it takes a lot.
I was in a relationship for 4 years. I literally lost my front teeth. She was there. I went back like nobody's business. It was like eye candy. I want more. But I mean, I just believe that different culture, I mean, they know it's wrong, or they do know it's wrong, but they still do it because it's their culture. They don't know what is GBV. Like, you do something wrong, we put you in line, which is totally, excuse my language, but fucked up. It's no woman of any culture, of any race, should experience GBV. There's no excuse, there's nothing. So yeah, that's just all I can say.
To go back on what you said, it's very much embedded on how we've done things. Because if we were to go into the simplest way of defining culture is a way of doing things. And that's it. How we do things. So then how we do things based on where we come from, based on who we are, is how we basically interpret and embody whatever it is that we trying. So it's what you said makes absolute sense. So a lot of GBV stems from our culture as South Africans, where a man is expected to play this role of a provider, of a protector, of this big man that does magic's man basically. So then if things don't go their way, then they would like to correct it. And when they correct it, it's not necessarily gentle. It's not necessarily logic.
Yeah.
They correct it in the way they know how, based on how they were raised. It's heritage, how they were. Because if we look at heritage, heritage is passing on a message from this generation to the next. And what we've done as South Africans is we've moved heritage from, it's always been from an older generation to a younger generation. But then as South Africans, based on what we were going through, we've moved it from the family to the community, because the community was experiencing the hardships that everybody else was experiencing, which was apartheid. Everybody was being restricted. Everybody was being treated in a way that is not supposed to happen, basically. We were treated as second-class citizens, and we can't be, but it's our land. How can we be? But it was happening, you know what I mean? So Heritage Day to me means unifying ourselves, recognizing that we're different, because we are. We're different, we speak different, we eat different, we sing different, we speak different. But in all of our difference, we are equal. And that's what Heritage Day means to me. It means acknowledging that we're different. It means paying homage to the fact that we've been through a whole lot of, I don't want to use bad words, but a whole lot of things. But at the end of the day, we're different. But we're equal.
Yeah.
I don't want to say in the eyes of the law, because then if we say that, it's going to be a whole thing of, but there's people, we can't be equal in the eyes of the law because there's financial and what. But essentially, we're different. I'm different from you. My culture is different from yours. It's different from yours. Similar to yours, but not entirely, because I'm half Zulu, half Xhosa. He's absolutely Xhosa, and you are half Xhosa, half Cameroonian, and you know, you have your Cape Malay heritage. So we're all different, and we can celebrate that, and that's what Heritage Day is all about. But as we go along, it's been watered down into many other things, but that's what it's all about. It's all about us acknowledging that we're different, and also saying, yes, we're different, but we're equal. All of us, with all our differences, we make the Rainbow Nation. We make the rainbow flag. It wouldn't exist without all of us. Imagine you went there, then there would be a color missing. Imagine I wasn't there, there would be a color missing. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I think that's why, in I don't know if it happened to you, like when you're growing up in primary school, where if Heritage Day was during the week, you'd come dressed in your like different attires. I mean, everyone came in their different, but we're all together. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think
it's not their question. It's everybody's question. But they can start.
Definitely. I think definitely there's a crisis of. I mean, I've always said this, even in my writings everywhere, that there is a crisis of leadership. You know, maybe majority of that crisis exists within men who are leaders, but I mean, I think it's across the whole board, because we have gotten detached from the whole purpose of, you know, passing down the baton, because Yeah, the definition of heritage is that it's like an inheritance. So you give it to, you have to pass down, but you can't pass that heritage down as if it's something fixed and something holy, because we all know that our cultural heritage is full of patriarchy. The Afrikaners' heritage has been problematic to the black people. The English's heritage has been very problematic to the Afrikaner. So heritage should also not just be about something that is inheritance, but it can also be something that we also create as a new heritage that we produce in the modern day. So I think that's where we need to kind of ask, what kind of a leader is needed for today's problem. Is Ramaphosa that leader? Definitely not.
No.
So
absolutely not.
So we need to restart and create a new heritage of leaders who are going to respond effectively to the people's problems, because the heritage of leaders in Africa, even when we got independence, and this you'll find across the whole African continent, people are saying that these people, when they got into power, they started behaving like our former oppressors, and they started creating policies that did not speak to what the people needed on the ground. So we need to create a new caliber and a new heritage of leaders who are going to be really responsive. Until then, I don't think there's any such leaders. I think we are in a problem.
You pose the question, is leadership in crisis, or is there a crisis in leadership?
That part.
So there is a crisis within the leadership that we see today. So leadership has never been in crisis. There's a crisis that exists
in leadership.
And therefore, to whom do you give the power? Because power is intergenerational. And with that intergenerational power that is carried over, there's also trauma that is carried over. So we become the people that's diagnosed. This generation becomes the diagnosis of the trauma of the past. So we inherit not only that toxicity of power, but we inherit the trauma of power. So that was never real power to begin with. And I'm not talking from a feminist perspective, but
though you should.
But if you look at households, what is the role of performance of men? Do they set the tone to be given that responsibility of power in the first place? Because there's so many households with single mothers who have brought up men that became the innovators of the tech world, innovators of entrepreneurial expertise. And yes, there is not enough men that reflect good power, good leadership, but it is not just a thing that is occupied within the space of that is a leader's role, but also how can we redefine the roles that is needed for the power that comes with the leadership roles, if that makes any sense. So it is also a philosophical interrogation, and it is also who are the real leaders even in South Africa? I don't know. I personally, I cannot see any leaders out there. But if I can imagine what a leader is, it becomes so abstract, because it is impossible to imagine a good leader for society. And therefore, it is up to us to become those leaders that we long for. And that is where leadership happens. It is to be courageous enough and take that leadership role on. And everyone's as in the immortal words of Immanuel Kant, the categorical imperative. It's imperative to take on that leadership. It's imperative for you as a young South African to show the good moral structure, moral fiber, and ethical formation as well. That is a leader. If I'm going to look at my colleagues that is learned here today, their roles that they come from as black Africans, it takes so much leadership and courage, because the challenges that we all face and that they face specifically as black is extremely difficult, and we must become aware of this, and that is where I engage with my research as a person doing theology. So you don't study theology, you do theology. You have to practice it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, what he's saying is very important about leadership. We cannot seek it. It cannot be out there. We have to be it. In your small little role that you play, as a brother, as a father, as someone who exists in society, somehow, if you have a role, you are a leader. Literally, it doesn't have to be on the people that have been elected, because we can try and say this is how they're supposed to act, this is how they're supposed to be. The fact is, they have their own way of how they want to be. But as well, we have our own ways of how we want society to be. So then it is our responsibility as a sister, as a friend, as a mother someday, God forbid. But you know what I mean? Like, you have to be a leader in where you exist, how you conduct your life, how you conduct yourself. Basically, my thing is, we can't be waiting for other people to do these things. We have to be these things. We have to embody what we want in the world, because us wanting it to be out there, what are the chances that we're going to get it?
To come back to this point of leadership and power, is that we cannot be influenced by neoliberal ideas of what power is if we come from an African context, because a neoliberal society is still embedded in colonial ways and empirical ways of the empire's mind, and as South Africans we must grab our own power intellectually. You know, we must take power intellectually. And where that starts with our generation. We must not be so open to be influenced, because then we can lose our culture as well. We're in the process of becoming modernized instead of being Africanized, you know, but with the uniqueness in this term. I want to say African as rootedness, African as in my blood, but also African in my uniqueness, you know. So if you go to what's this place, or here in the Cape Town area, the Cape Malay colored people, they are also unique in their being,
in their culture,
and so
their way of doing things,
in their being, but just being who they are. That is to be true to yourself.
100%. Looks like you guys are burning desire to. I'm also burning, but I'll give you guys a moment.
Look, Africa, just like another continent, has borders, but those borders have a history. And if you want to if you want to understand how things come to being and to form, is for you to understand that history. The Russians understand their history fully, and they understand it as a Russian history. The Chinese had their own history, they understand it as a Chinese history. But in Africa, our history was dwindled, changed, and demotified, and we don't know it really, right? So that's why when we speak of Africans, you know, it's not a unitary term. You know, you get Africans who understand themselves as Africans because of the color of their skins. You get Africans who understand themselves philosophically in that they're Africans not because they were born in Africa, but because Africa was born in them. You know, there's a lot of different ways of understanding who an African is, and I think for us, and this is just one, but there's many. You know, there's many ways in which we can try and unify ourselves. But I think the one way for me is for us to try and teach a pure, authentic African history that speaks about us coming from one place, that speak of Africans as a peoples that have always been without a border in the first place. And if that history is not there, then you know, our Pan-Africanists, you know, writers like myself must start writing that history. And you can write it in many ways. You can write it in terms of creating, you know, because writing is not just writing in paper. It can be fashion, you know, visual. I call it visual languages, because you see an African painting or you see an African clothing and you're like, oh wow, and you say, no, but this is African. Or we have to try and teach it from great art about how Africans actually just come from one place, you know. So we started from there. So history can be a way of mobilizing Africans to start seeing themselves as a unitary force, rather than this history that has been given to us of Africans who were just naked in the continent, running around and didn't have ways of living, you know, etc.
I think he outlined everything.
He said a lot. He definitely said a lot, and in line with what he said, right? Like, I think what you said was basically cultural diversity. I think, if anything, what it does is it's undoing what apartheid did to us. Because apartheid came and said, because of your skin, you are superior than that person, than that person, than that person. So what it is it brings us to a knowledge and an acknowledgement of we are human. And because we are human, we are equal. It doesn't, the fact of that when you praise God, you do that, and when I praise God, I do whatever it is. Like, we have different ways of living. We've got different cultures, but at the end of the day, we're human. So cultural diversity is just a knowledge that we need to take in, that at the end of it all, we different, but we equal. So I appreciate it, and I accept it, and I appreciate it, but what it means is you're different, but we're equal. Because all of us exist within the same ecosystem, within the same rainbow nation as we've found ourselves to be. We're different, but we're equal. But we're different. But we're different, but we're equal. That's all it means.
Just one last thing to add to what they've said. They've summarized it so succinctly.
Yeah.
There's this one saying, I am because you
are. Ubuntu.
Right?
You know what I mean?
But to grapple it, when I become, is my brother and sister taken care of? right? So in the intellectual community or the academia, we can have these very intelligent conversations.
Yeah.
But the practicality of Ubuntu, the practicality of that phrase, I am because you are, how is it that there are so many people living in poverty? And how is it that there's another extreme wealthy class of people in South Africa? How do we reconcile the two? So there is also a need for reconciliation, but a need so that the people on the other side will understand that they can no longer become so extremely wealthy when there's such an extreme poverty on the other side. And that starts with our leaders of the country. Do they acknowledge
That part.
And it is leaders in all different spheres of society, in communities. Do they really understand the burden of poverty, or do they speak to it?
If we talk about culture and heritage, it could be a whole entire night.
But with what you said though, that you are, I am, you are, the question that he was asking, right? He said Russia is one,
yes,
China is one,
yes,
or whatever. But I mean, why can't we as Africa, why can't South Africa and Nigeria be one? Why can't we be one? Like, as a continent, why can't we be one?
The problem,
I feel like if we can all accept each other, we can actually get to know who we are.
Exactly.
100%.
If you,
who we really are. I mean,
because we're fighting over breadcrumbs and we don't even own the bakery. We don't even own the bakery, but we're fighting over breadcrumbs.
As I said,
it's insane.
And as I said, I know it might sound impractical, but the problem with other societies is that they don't have a history like Africa, where as a continent, Africa was colonized, and this was not just colonial power, but this was English colonization, French colonization, and then there was Spanish colonization. And then after that, what you get is not an authentic African, but you get an African who's Franco-speaking from Africa, who has an intellectual slang that is francophone, and he wants to be French, not African.
You know what I mean?
Guys, sometimes, I mean, I know I am South African, I take half of the blame, but still, I mean,
the basis of it all, we are all fighting over breadcrumbs, but we don't own the bakery.
No,
the bread has been eaten.
No, we do.
We own it, but it's not in our name.
Let me explain this thing in Cameroon, right? So, in Cameroon, there's the Francophone and the Anglophone, which is the French and the English divided, right? So the south is the English, 2 minutes, all right, I'm quickly happening.
But there's still the conflict.
Yes, but now, what happens, the southwest, the south side, right, is the one with the minerals, the one with the land, the one that produces plantain, the one that produces everything. They plant, they produce, pack, ship to Douala, which is the Francophone, and for them to eat, they don't eat what they've harvested. They go and buy from, exactly, like, do you get my, like,
yeah.
We're fighting for breadcrumbs, that it's breadcrumbs that we own, but we are
exactly right.
We are making the breadcrumbs.
But who owns the bakery? We're fighting over the breadcrumbs.
We just don't know how to produce, manufacture. The white people came and showed us, okay, since you just plant, so now we will come we'll produce it, package it, and then you come and buy it from us. But that is literally what exactly is happening in Cameroon. There is a war that is happening.
Yeah, there's a war.
As I'm talking to you right now in Cameroon.
Yeah.
And it's Francophones trying to take over the English sides because, okay, these sides, they've got more minerals, but now we can, we'll package it for you, then you come and buy it from us.
Yeah.
There's a border between Nigeria and Cameroon, that there's a petrol something going on there. The
gas pumps.
Yes, the Cameroonians own that.
The gas pumps. And that's a big one.
The Nigerians come, take, and then Cameroon have to go and buy it from Nigeria to bring it back to Cameroon. That is so insane.
We have a long way to go.
But,
and all of it starts from us acknowledging that.
What's this?
We're Africans.
Okay.
We don't own the bakery. And us fighting over breadcrumbs is insane. It's insane.
So how do we get the baker to give the stuff that
How do we become the bakery?
How do we become the baker?
Unfortunately, these things, for example, for China to be where they are right now, and for Russia, and those are good examples, is that at some point, those two societies went through revolutions where they had to fight for them to produce this kind of society that they have. So they went, I'm not saying we must go hardships, but all I'm saying is that building takes a long time, and it's painful, and we have to even
we have to unite first.
It's skills development. That's the basis of it. That's how the Chinese did it. It's skills development.
No.
They wanted to do something and achieve it, and it's skills development. They were like, okay, this is what we want to do, so then let's capacitate ourselves in that nature. Like, it's skills development, and that's how we do it, and that's how our government right now is supposed to do it. There's people, they have skills, they don't necessarily have traditional degrees. I do, he does, but there's many other people that have great ideas, great drive, that want to drive things, but they need to be capacitated. They need to have the right set of skills to set up the kind of businesses that could be sustainable enough to cause... Jesus Christ, what just happened?
The Lord is speaking to you.
Yeah, it's a sign. Time out. It's a sign. It's over. Like,
yeah, but basically, skills development, that's what we need. That's what we need. We don't need traditional universities that have been offering the same courses in 1994. They're offering the same courses in 2022. We need skills development, period.
Catch me, I'll be on my mission. Catch me, candid for these lenses. Catch me, one day whipping in his Benzes. Catch me, catch me, catch me. Catch me, like we playing on. Roll one, and you gon' sing along. Hey, sip some, and you gon' get your dance on. Catch me, catch me, catch me. Drowning in ambition now.